This is Peter Gill, and this is my sister, Deborah, and... Was that weird?
In case you can't tell, we haven't done this in a while. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for completely forgetting that we existed. It's been a year. It's been
a few years. It's been
half a decade, but you know.
So, welcome back, or welcome for the first time to Sibling Slant. Where we, well, so far, just Nancy Drew. Probably going to be just Nancy Drew for a while.
They made a lot of games.
Yes, but we chat about stuff, and we chat.
Ooh, so on
We
point.
prepared!
It's basically where we review each video game, starting with the Nancy Drew games, and give our own unique opinions on them. They're unique not only because we are two different people, and different people tend to have different thoughts, but also, I know it's shocking, but also because there is a little bit of an age difference between us. We're not going to say how much.
Why not?
Because I'm old, okay? My birthday's coming up, and I'm getting old. But I am the older sister, and...
Believe it or not.
I know. I feel like with every year it looks less convincing. But because of that, I spent a lot of my older youth playing these games, whereas he played them when he was...
Middle youth.
We'll call it that.
We played with our mother, the entire series, starting... pre-teens for me, I think.
Yeah, I was well into my teen. I played a couple of them younger. It doesn't really matter, but we also come into it with different ideas, because whereas he is a huge video game enthusiast,
yes,
I have some video games that I like quite a bit, but it's not necessarily. I'm not as into it, and I partly blame it on the fact that nobody's trying to make games that are appealing to me, so there's that. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about the third installment in the Nancy Drew series.
Yes.
Message in a Haunted Mansion.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start once again with setting. So welcome to the soon-to-be bed and breakfast in San Francisco. You will spend the entire game in this Victorian mansion where renovations are in desperate need of being finished as the opening date looms closer. So right off the bat, I love this mansion so much. It's one of the best settings in Nancy Drew, and I think that partly comes from it's the only thing. You never leave the house. And so they were able to devote all of their resources to making it so that all of the different floors and the different rooms, they looked distinct from one another, as opposed to an upcoming game. But they all had this cohesion as opposed to a certain upcoming game. And so you had different color palettes, different patterned wallpapers. You had the basement where it was like excessively like wood. Like I think it was just wood all over the walls.
Yeah, it looks like the basement bar of a really old building, like
which is exactly
really
what
cool
it was
look.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
Oh, and not only that, but they also did something that, as far as I can remember, no other Nancy Drew game has bothered to do, which is make random dynamics. And so you walk into a room and maybe the curtains will flutter. You walk into another room and maybe you see somebody walking past the door. I know that these are meant to be, ooh, spooky, but like there's wind in real life and it makes it feel more alive. So I'm not necessarily playing it going, oh, scary, like some of them.
It is definitely meant to increase the spooky ambiance.
Yes.
and it does a really good job with that. And I do think you touched on something there, that it is nice that there are dynamic elements like that. Like, even if they weren't going for a spooky ambiance, it would kind of be nice if more of the games had dynamic elements to make the areas feel a bit more alive.
And having it be randomized is what makes it really work. So every time you walk into a room, the curtain doesn't blow. It just sometimes. Some of them are very, very specifically only spooky.
Yeah.
But a lot of them...
And there are some that are fairly rare, which also increases the spooky factor.
Absolutely.
I think they did a really great job with those little scares and everything, honestly.
Definitely.
And
like doors slamming occasionally, people walking by. A phoenix came to life.
You see like the silhouette of a woman walking through a mirror.
Yep.
Just little things like that. Yeah, sure, some of them might be a little cheesy, but...
The woman walking in the mirror is a little cheesy, but that was like meant to be.
I mean, yeah, but like it's just it gives it a certain feel, and to be fair, it is a children's game, so the scares should be a little cheesy.
Oh yeah, and it's very mild, spooky, which I love. I don't like spooky. I don't know if I've said that enough.
And even me, who loves spooky, I love horror and all of that. I like it. I really like it. Another thing I love about the setting is all the secret passageways and everything. I love that. If you're going to set your thing in like an old mansion or something, give me cool secret passageways, and I love it. I love it.
Being able to get into the crawl space under the house, being able to have like a hidden door in a bookshelf, like that's absolutely the sort of thing that belongs in a mystery game, honestly.
Yes.
This game feels so Nancy Drew. This is a very Nancy Drew type mystery.
What would be your favorite room?
It's really, really hard to pick, because they're all just so good. But if I had to pick a favorite, I'd probably pick the front entryway, because it has... I'm such a sucker for double staircases where there's one leading off on one side, one leading off on another. It happens.
I think you're contractually obligated to have that sort of staircase if you're setting your thing in like a super old mansion.
Right, and like having the little detail that it squeaks on one side when you walk on the floorboard.
I love that, and we will touch on that later.
Right, and so it's got all these elements. There's a clock that ticks, and so it's a pleasing sound. And the colors are very... Doesn't
it occasionally like do an off-tone chime?
I don't know if it's off-tone, but it does chime the hour, which is nice.
Yeah. No,
and
that's
so
really cool.
It's a very zen kind of space, and you don't have to do a lot of pixel searching in it. There's a little bit, just like with any of these games.
I think there's just like a couple things that you have to get in that area, and they're fairly specific. Or they're fairly obvious.
Yeah.
So
they actually did it right, where you see something and you go, oh, I wonder if this is important, and you click on it. So, how about you?
It's similarly difficult for me to pick an area. Just honestly, I love the whole place. I would live in there. I would totally live in there.
I'd visit it, but I wouldn't live there.
But I think for me, I'd have to say the attic, just because it's so cool, that feeling of exploring someplace that presumably hasn't been seen in ages. I love that. I love how you find it.
There's a lot more like environmental storytelling happening in the attic, I think, than any other room. Yeah. Where you kind of see the age of the house more in the attic because it hasn't really been renovated like the rest of the house.
Yeah. And I love that feeling. I've in my life I've had a few chances to explore really old, seldomly touched places. Not as many as I would like to, but I have gotten that opportunity a few times, and it's such a cool feeling to just soak in that. I love it. I love it.
It's a fun place to explore.
Yeah.
And now, shifting gears a little bit, we don't have a lot in the way of characters, but we do have some.
Yes. And before we get into the specific characters, I would like to say that they look worlds better than the previous game. Not that would take much.
Yes.
They still move rather robotically, but I don't think any of them look outright frightening.
No, I'd say that some of the movements are definitely a little unnatural, but I kind of wish that her interactive had stayed with this a little bit more, because in later games they try to have them move even more, and I think that having them have limited movements and just focusing on really good design for the characters visually, I think it works a lot better.
Yeah, they definitely, I think they do a good job with choosing poses, even if it's very point A, point B, you know.
These are roses.
The end points look all right.
Yeah, like Abby especially. Like, I think Abby is the one who can look the weirdest, because she moves the most, but she still has very natural looking end poses.
Yeah.
Speaking of the characters themselves, let's move on to Who's Who. We're going to start out with Rose Green. She is the owner of the B&B and a friend of Hannah, who is Nancy's housekeeper.
Deb knows this because she read the books back in the day.
I'm pretty sure they said it in the game.
Did they?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
Because that would be a weird thing to leave out. But I am familiar. I need to stop touching. I'm not used to having a mic here. But I'm more familiar with the books. The early books. I don't know anything about the later books. Don't come at me. I'm not interested.
She's familiar with the yellow spine hardbacks.
And some of the ones that came just a little bit after that. But again, I was aging out of that. But anyway, Rose Green brings Nancy in not to solve any mysteries, but because she needs Nancy's help with the renovation work. Specifically, 3 tasks that you finish in the first 10 minutes.
Do I just have really bad... Okay, I could have sworn that she brought Nancy in because of the accidents that were happening. No?
No, she brought her in because she needs help with the renovations.
Okay, so I just completely blitzed past that. Okay.
Which I think is fun. I like when the mystery happens more organically, and it's
yeah.
Some games are really forced.
Yeah. I will say that Rose's voice acting is a little flat.
And I will say that you are wrong. I think Rose talks in the most natural way that any Nancy Drew character up until this point has probably talked.
Really?
She's got a little bit of a lower register. She sounds vaguely stressed out, but tired, which is perfect for a character who is struggling to open a bread and breakfast while a lot of weird accidents keep happening. And so she's pretty chill. She's pretty... I think all of the characters in this game, honestly, they're so fun to listen to because it doesn't feel as cartoony as...
I mean, fair.
Yeah.
Fair. I will say this certainly isn't the game with the worst voice acting, like by a long shot.
No.
But yeah, that honestly, that was the only note I had for her.
Yeah, she's just basically a pretty cool character. I liked her a lot when I was a kid, because she was nice, and it was nice to have a nice character to talk to.
I mean, fair.
You don't
like
get that a lot.
I will say that she definitely is like one of those few characters that you feel like you could be friends with.
Yes.
So I will say that in her favor.
Speaking of people you couldn't be friends with, that brings us
my.
to Abby. She is Rose Green's business partner and supernatural expert, otherwise known as an ESP charlatan, but in a fun way.
Yeah, I definitely like her. She's fun. She can be a bit much, but she's fun.
She's a fun character for a video game, but in real life, she would be on my last nerve.
Yes, yes.
And you can see that in Rose for some of it.
Yes.
Where she's like, okay, Abby, can we please? I know you're manifesting spirits, but...
But, I mean, to be fair, she hired her. You know, she hired her presumably specifically for this haunting stuff.
Well, yeah, it's a gimmick.
So,
you know, it's meant to be a gimmick.
Yeah.
So, whatever. Another person that Rose hired is Louis Chandler. He is the antiques dealer, so he's kind of like a consultant, probably largely for insurance purposes, to make sure that everything is insured properly.
Well, no, they specifically said that he was there to help with the renovation by like choosing by like
getting
finding
like, the
and
proper
choosing
things.
Yeah, like era appropriate furnishings.
Right. Yeah, he's less fun. He's very dismissive. He's got kind of that so you're here kind of like
I mean
attitude.
he's a fairly okay, so basically what they were trying to play him as was a fairly typical slightly snobbish antiques dealer.
But he's not snobbish enough to be like truly snobbish.
Yeah,
he's
no,
just,
he's
just kind of dismissive.
Yeah. But the problem I have with him is that his voice acting is not great. It sounds like someone trying to do a voice that they just sort of came up with on a whim. Like, it doesn't sound like they practiced this voice.
And once again, I kind of disagree. I think the voice acting across the board in this game is just fine.
I don't know, it just sounds like, yes, oh, you startled me. Like, it sounds like a very lazily done voice to me.
It's possible that he didn't have the best directing.
I mean, yeah, it's.
But I thought that his voice, it's like just his voice itself, not necessarily how he reacts to certain things, was pretty good.
Then there's Charlie, the basement handyman.
I like Charlie. Good old Charlie.
I mean, yeah.
He's meant to be likable. He has just this dumb grin on his face for the majority of the game. And just like Rose, he's just a fairly nice person to talk to.
And to be clear, a likable dumb grin.
Yes.
Like it's a very wholesome dumb grin.
Yes. He is meant to be a sympathetic character, and it works. He pulls it off. You feel a little bad for him. Mm-hmm. And like once you figure out what's going on, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
We then move on to phone contacts. So we actually get to talk to Hannah in this game. That never happens. Like, Nancy will have home on her phone, but if you dial it, you'll get like an answering machine.
Or her father, I think, right?
In the Silent Spy.
Okay.
But normally you don't even talk to Carson.
Yeah.
So it's cool that he gets to talk to Hannah.
And yeah, is this the first time that she's been, or the first time, obviously the first time, but is this the only time
As far as...
she's been in these games?
I can't swear to it, but if she's been in any of the other games, it's been so minor that I just don't remember.
Honestly, the phone contacts play a larger role in this game, which I kind of like, I will say, I like the phone contacts in this game.
I like that you don't have to do all of them. I like that.
Well, I mean it more in that, like,
I like
Hannah
that Ned
and
isn't
later we have. I don't think you put it in the notes, but there's an antiques person,
Emily.
a history
I did
person.
put it in the notes. There is
yes.
Emily. Oh, I want to say her last name, but I don't quite remember.
Yeah, I both Hannah and Emily, I really like both of them. They're both very friendly. Emily is their... she exists to give Nancy some information that she wouldn't have been able to get otherwise. She's like a historian or something.
Yeah, something like that. She gives you a lot of... mostly she gives you exposition, which I'm not a big fan of. Bess and George are, once again, phone contacts. They exist just to give you clues, and I'm fine with that. And then we have not phone contacts, but technically characters, which is Lizzie Applegate and Valdez. They are historical figures. You're going to see mentions of Lizzie Applegate throughout like a couple Nancy Drew games. It's just to make it feel old and make it feel historical without actually making it historical.
Yeah.
Same with Valdez. He's important-ish.
He is important to the setup of why there's a mystery.
Yeah. Which takes us very handily into the mystery slash story slash gameplay.
We're combining them all in hopes that this will streamline things.
So far it's not. Chapter 1, Accidents and Wood Grain. Nancy has just arrived to help with the renovations, but has discovered that there have been mysterious accidents that are threatening whether the bed and breakfast can open. Are there supernatural spirits at play? We don't know yet, but we do know that we have been brought down there to help put tiles on one tile on a floor that is already finished, except for one tile.
Yeah.
It's hard as a kid, but as an adult, it's a really easy puzzle.
I disagree. I disagree. As an adult, it is still just as hard, and I hate that puzzle.
I've played a lot of
because
games
the
like
thing
that.
is that not only do you have to match the faint wood grain, which isn't obvious at first,
That
but
can be frustrating.
also you have to be pixel perfect, absolutely pixel perfect,
Yeah.
to the point where there are certain ones where you have to put the one piece down before the other, simply because there's some weird thing with how it decides if that's a valid place to put it. It is a nightmare.
Admittedly, it's a little frustrating that it doesn't just click into place like most puzzles. I really didn't have a hard time with it, so I don't think it's that bad, but your mileage may vary.
It is. It's not a hard puzzle. Like, it's not a hard puzzle, but it is a frustrating puzzle.
I can understand that. The other fun part about the first part of the game is that you're just kind of exploring the house and meeting people. And so just like how we were talking about in the settings section, where there are dynamics, there's even dynamics with the characters. Everyone isn't just glued to one spot, tossing a football in the air for all eternity.
Yeah.
Time passes in the game, and that is reflected in the schedules that people have.
Yeah, and it's not like the previous game where time passes, but it's just day and night.
Right.
In this game, the different characters, they have their own schedules. So like the one character might be there at like just pulling numbers out of the air 6 o'clock. Another character might be in their place at like 3.
Yeah, and they set it up so that it's pretty easy to tell when everyone will be everywhere.
Yeah,
And
it is definitely cool from like a realism standpoint and
Yes.
a letting you like get around like, ooh, I need to wait until this time to be able to snoop around their area. But I will say that it can be annoying at times to like go,
I think
okay, what time? Like,
I feel like the frustration comes from the fact that we've played this game so many times that it's like when I read Pride and Prejudice and I'm like, just get to the next part. I know the next part is coming.
maybe
And so
that's
you
how
get-
it is for you, but I get this way with every game that has scheduled characters. It's like,
Okay, then that's a you
it's
thing.
something I don't. It's something I like from like a environmental standpoint. It makes the world feel more alive. But when it comes to actually playing the game, it can be a little frustrating. So
It definitely makes you need to take a step back and play the game in a more laid back manner.
yeah.
Oh, a fun little side note is Charlie is voiced by Ned, and I didn't even realize it until I wasn't looking at the screen when he started talking, and I was very confused because I'm like, why is Ned talking? And I look up and I'm like, oh, that's probably why Ned isn't a phone contact.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have anything to say to that. It's just kind of amusing.
It's just funny. We talked about the spooky shadows, their spooky
Yeah.
portraits with moving eyes, as you need to have in this kind of game.
And I do love how some of these are explained later in the story, which of course we'll get to.
Right. Or we won't. Depends upon how our memories go.
I have it written down.
Oh, there's also this beautiful poem in Nancy's room where she's saying, it's so fun, and then it leads you on this chase around the manor, or mansion, whatever,
Banner Mansion.
whatever, to find Chinese characters that match up with the poem, which I think is great. I've heard people complain about some of the. I don't know. I don't understand Nancy Drew fans, honestly. I love the games, and so I guess technically I'm a Nancy Drew fan, but I don't understand. They're like, I prefer doing the really, really difficult, confusing things like slider puzzles or map
Oh,
puzzles,
gosh.
and I'm like, no, I kind of like the environmental stuff where you figure it out by looking around and by like snooping around. Like that feels more detective. Like,
So, you know, if you've watched
here we go.
if you've watched the other videos, you'll know I am a huge Myst fan, and as such, I too by far prefer environmental puzzles to gamey puzzles. I don't know, great mini game puzzles.
Yes.
And so, yeah, no, I do love stuff like the, you know, finding the characters. I forget what you do with them.
It comes into play with the safe at the end.
Yeah.
And you have to get all of the characters
Yeah,
in
that's
order.
yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, no, I do love stuff like that. So I agree that is and it is a beautiful like gold leafed like plaque.
It's very pretty.
Yeah. I find it extremely funny how Louis Chandler's computer credentials can be bypassed by playing what is essentially a Windows 95 screensaver. As nostalgic and just nostalgic as that is, it is incredibly not fun to do. especially when you have to do it repeatedly.
Theoretically, you should only have to do it once if you're taking good enough notes.
I mean, yeah, but it's just your speed is so slow, and also, again, it's a maze. Mazes are not fun. And there is also the problem of it takes you out of the experience. Why can you bypass his login credentials by playing a screensaver?
He likes playing games.
I mean, I suppose you could argue that it's sort of being faithful to, like, 90s computer security, in that you could just have, like, really, really random, dumb stuff that could bypass things, but...
That brings us to Chapter 2, Silly Seance, Tapes Are for Tricks. Nancy finds herself in the middle of a seance where Abby calls upon whatever spirits aren't too busy at the moment to prove that she has connections to the afterlife.
Okay, and so that half-hearted voice you did,
Yes.
that would have fit right in with the voice acting of the scene.
Okay, that is the one point I will concede. The voice acting in the seance is so bad.
Who calls me from the great beyond? Just the voice acting, even of the characters who exist outside of this cutscene, their voice acting is terrible.
Please sit down.
We really don't have time for this.
Let us begin. We are gathered here tonight to contact the shades of those who have passed before us. Gaze into the crystal ball. It will answer all of our questions.
What's that?
Who has called me forth from the great beyond?
We have. Are you the spirit known as Valdez?
I was once called that in the world of the living.
Are you the spirit who has caused these accidents?
I have come back searching for her, my wife. Where can she be?
The spirits have spoken. The seance is over.
Their voice acting is so terrible in this specific scene.
I don't know, I felt Rose at the end when she was like, okay, spirits have physically manifested, but we need to get going, Abby. There's stuff that needs to be done.
We've got a busy day tomorrow, and no more time for these games, Abby. And make sure you blow out the candles on your way up. I don't want to wake up and find the house on fire.
You could say it's bad acting, but I'm looking at that and I'm like,
No,
I feel
think
you.
I think the writing with that was great, but I don't think it was acted well.
It was played for laughs, I'd say, which is good because it's for kids.
Yeah.
The constant shifts from first person view to somebody watching from the staircase, though, is it's hilarious.
What I love from that shot is Nancy's untextured, unanimated stand-in. It is hilarious.
It's beautiful. You figure out the hoax, by the way too easily, but that's probably best because, again, it's for kids.
But it's so satisfying how we find out. I do love that.
The cause and effect is great in this game.
Yes.
You don't get that in all the games.
And I do also want to mention this scene, even with its problems, so much better than than the fully animated scene from the previous game. So much better. Better animated, even better voice acted.
Sheesh! What was that? I could have been killed!
I agree.
So, definite improvement there.
Oh yeah, but within like the story itself, it's kind of funny because you just sit there going, how rich is Abby? Because she not only pulled that off, but like we figure out that all of the really spooky things that are happening, it's like tapes and mirrors.
Yes, but don't think about it. It's fun.
That's kind of what it comes down to. It's not a thing that breaks the experience. It's
Yeah.
just one of those, huh.
And she
move
has
on.
to be getting some funds from Rose because they're obviously she's obviously there to give the bed and breakfast a unique
certain vibe.
twist.
Well, I think that it's in bad taste that she's like, maybe the ghosts are the ones behind the accidents.
Yes.
Because
yeah.
it's like, okay, Abby, you know that, like, she maintains that there are ghosts, but
Yeah, even when you call her out on it later, yeah.
she's like, but there are ghosts, though. It's like, okay. But honestly, the whodunit factor for the accidents, this game, it's so good because everyone is a suspect.
Yes.
Everyone has a plausible...
It is a baseline setter for the
Yes.
series, I'd say.
Yeah. Because could Rose be doing it for the insurance money?
Mm-hmm.
Could Abby be behind the accidents to prove that there are ghosts? Could Charlie be behind the accidents because he's bad at his job? Could Lewis be doing it to cover up the fact that he spends all day playing a maze game on his computer? So anyone could be behind it, and that brings us on to Chapter 3. Nancy Drew and the Invasion of Privacy.
I forgot the chapter titles you did for this. Like, these are good.
Thank you. Nancy discovers... Oh, do you want to take...
Yeah, I'm gonna talk for... Nancy discovers some hidden passages which she can use to spy on people. Hopefully there's a criminal in the game, otherwise Nancy is just a weirdo. To be fair, if I found secret passages... yeah, I'd spy on people.
No, it's very weird and disturbing.
Our grandpa's house had a grate.
Okay,
into
but
the
as
fir-
children, there's a difference between
yes,
doing
as
it as
chil-
a child. Nancy is an
Fair,
adult.
fair.
And now, while the whodunit factor is high, what also makes it a little high is that there is still a chance that these are all just accidents. But Nancy is Nancy.
Or ghosts.
Or, well, no. And so she does have to investigate. And
You need a flashlight to explore the hidden passage under the basement fireplace, which oftentimes in these games can feel super arbitrary and annoying. But something I really appreciate in this game is that once you do go down there with a light source, you see that just like a few steps forward, there's just this chasm.
yeah, so Nancy really shouldn't have been down there without a light.
Yeah, so, you know, you take a couple feet and you actually would die. So it's a small thing. It's a small touch, but it really does go a long way in making the game feel more real.
Definitely. And it's through that passageway that you're able to find the section behind the bar in the basement, which we find out is where Charlie has been living. He has like a sleeping bag, some takeout food. So it looks like he's been living there in secret. He seems to be a college student. Is college the real villain?
Yes. Nancy also steals his term paper, which he has on a floppy disk, for no reason. I'm sure for a struggling college student, that won't cause any unbearable anxiety.
No, Nancy's kind of a jerk sometimes.
Yes.
She confronts Charlie and is like, why do you secretly live in a tiny hidden room with almost no food or belongings? And he's like, I'm homeless. And she's like, yeah, I guess that checks out.
Yeah.
It's like, Nancy. But the piano puzzle is neat. I like piano puzzles. And this one doesn't force you to learn how to use a piano if you already know how. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
I love this kind of thing because it's so cool to me to have something just completely banal be the key to a secret compartment or something. You know, it's the whole pulling the book to access the, or whatever, but just like playing a little ditty on the piano and it opens a compartment on the piano. I love that sort of thing. It's so good.
It is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Oh, this is also where you get to confront Abby and let her know that you understand that there are no ghosts, and she's just behind it. She knows. She's like, yeah, I just like live action role playing.
Though honestly, I think that's what makes her such a fun character, because it's like, yeah, she's a charlatan, but she's not, you know.
She's aware of herself.
Yes, she's a
self-aware.
self-aware charlatan.
Yeah. She's like, okay, you caught me, but there are some
But
ghosts.
maybe there's. Yeah. And as mentioned before, I absolutely adore hidden passageways and the looking through the eyes of a painting trope that they use here. As silly as it probably is, I do still love it.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Who cares if it's silly? If it's fun.
And by doing that, you get to spy on Lewis as he's in the library. And thank goodness you can do it, because he's doing the most nefarious thing that any character has ever done in any Nancy Drew game. Not only in up to now, but in any future game. It is so suspicious.
Oh, God.
He is in a library reading a book. And Nancy is just like, oh, my detective senses are tingling.
And later, I want to mention, so to be clear, Nancy is like, that's suspicious. Why would he do that? Like, in her dialogue, she's like that. She is like, something is weird here. And she says that to one of her phone contacts, and even they say, that doesn't sound very suspicious.
Yeah, and like usually, like Nancy could be like, after I got the bloody handprint in the mail, I noticed some red paint by this person's like easy boy, like easy chair, whatever, lazy boy.
Easy
and
boy.
they'd be like, that's not so weird. I keep red paint cans all over my house. But like in this one, yeah, they talk her
With
down
this
a little.
one, it'd be like getting a red handprint in the mail and like going to your local paint store and going, this is suspicious, they have red paint.
Right, and so it's fair that they're like, Nancy, that's not really suspicious. But she looks in the book anyway, and the phrase gumbo foo pops out at her, and it's instrumental in solving the case.
Somehow.
Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned it here, and I'm just going to get it out the way now. I looked it up, and as far as I can tell, no, gumbo foo does not mean what we find out it means in Chinese. And this is why Nancy Drew games aren't edutainment games. They are not educational, because you cannot tell. They do not clearly draw the line between the fake nonsense that they make up and the real bits from history that they put in. And if you don't have that clear line, you're playing Carmen Sandiego and Myst at the same time. You can't do that. Pick a lane. It's either real or it's fake. If you're going to make it real, like you can do historical fiction.
Yeah, you can
But
you can
don't peddle
use
it
you
as-
can use elements of history in your thing. You know, you can have
Yes.
a Victorian mansion. You can have your thing set in Victoria times or whatever. Victorian era? Yeah.
You can have, 1920s with speakeasies. You can have all of these different elements from history, but you can't peddle these as edutainment games. And I'm not really sure if they push them that way, but I know that fans think of them that
They
way.
definitely feel like they were like many of the games definitely feel like they were trying to be... I wouldn't necessarily... I don't get that feeling from this game. I don't get the feeling from this game in particular that it was trying to be an edutainment game.
I feel like
but
later games
do.
will kind of shove it down your throat more.
Specifically the next one, but we're not here to talk about the next one.
We're not here.
You're not here?
The other puzzle that we solve, the banister puzzle, it's fun. It's simple.
Again, it's a little silly, but
it's fun.
Yeah.
Chapter 4, Festival of Fire. Everyone in the house is leaving to attend a hereto unmentioned festival because even though there is a looming deadline and everything is going wrong, it's still important to get some cotton candy and deep-fried Twinkies.
Yeah, the festival is definitely just an excuse to give Nancy / the player free roam over the mansion for a bit so she can finish up the last few puzzles.
Yeah, and this is also around the time when we learned that Gumbo Fu means gold treasure mansion. It doesn't, as far as I can tell, but that's what the game says. It's really on the nose. Nancy's like, what could it mean? And it's like, well, there isn't a whole lot that it could mean.
Well, I mean, by this point, don't we already know the rumor about Valdez's treasure?
Valdez? Yeah, so, like, we can already see the signs on the wall. I do not like the safe puzzle with the zodiac animals. It's very hard for me. So once you get through the first layer the first layer is the zodiac puzzle.
And
I don't like
honestly, I don't have that much of a problem. I will say the animals are definitely a little stylized, but they're
very
far
stylized.
from the worst that I have seen when it comes to stylized animals in a puzzle like that.
Okay, I struggle with things that look too similar, and a couple of the animals look too similar, and I remember, like, as an adult, it's not that hard, but I remember as a child, I was just stuck on this puzzle.
That could definitely be. You are definitely towing a fine line when you're making a puzzle like this and you start stylizing the animals because...
Like, I seem to recall that as a kid, I just could not figure out what the horse was.
Oh. And I'd have to bring up an image.
I obviously figured it out eventually, but I remember being really annoyed with that puzzle.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
I like the safe puzzle with the Chinese characters. It ties everything together, kind of makes it feel like all of the investigating we did actually meant something, which most of the games it does not. You just kind of solve Sudoku puzzles and then get handed the next piece of the mystery.
Yeah, no.
Sometimes literally.
Yeah. I mean, it is easy to do that. From a game design standpoint, I'm saying, like, that's why they do stuff like that, is because it's a lot easier. Yeah, just give them a mini game, you know, instead of tying things into the world. The pyramid puzzle box inside the safe is very weird, though.
I like it.
First, you fit an item you found earlier into a shaped recess in the side.
That's what I like. It's the easy part.
Then you do one of those cross-flip puzzles. I don't know what the proper name for them is.
I also like that because it's really easy.
Second side. They're all right. Bit overdone maybe, but they're all right. And then for the third side, you have your legally mandatory slider puzzle.
And now let me flip the table because that is what I do not like. I hate sliding puzzles so much. I can't figure them out. My brain just doesn't work that way. I can solve all kinds of weird, random things, but when it comes to slider puzzles, brain shuts off and I'm like, well,
It's funny, sometimes I can solve a slider puzzle, like, super quick, and sometimes I'll just be stuck on it for what feels like forever, but I will say, they aren't fun. Even when I can do them quickly, slider puzzles are not fun. Deb, for some reason, likes sliding block puzzles, but we'll get to talk about that in like 2 games.
Because they're easy.
They are
And you can
so
only
not
slide
easy.
things up or down. I like that.
Yeah. But yeah, after you do all that, you get a gem from that triangle
Yeah, like
thing.
a little red ruby or something.
You now get the titular message in the Haunted Mansion, which feels like a late addition due to the fact that it is never acknowledged. Nancy doesn't even gasp when it just says, "Leave the mansion now," in like the scrawled black writing.
No, red for blood.
No, isn't it black? I think it's black.
Is it black? We get so many death threats. That I
Yes.
just sort of...
But it's like she doesn't acknowledge it at all. This is like
No.
towards the end of the game.
It is,
Yeah.
and it's kind of funny because when you mentioned that, I was like, oh, is that the message in the Haunted Mansion?
Yeah.
I
they
didn't realize
actually
it.
show it, if I recall correctly, they actually show it on the box.
I don't
So
think
I
ever
think
would
they
have
just put that
together.
in just to justify the name.
I will allow it. It's a fun name.
It's a fun name. It's weird.
Yeah. By the way,
Yes.
one of the rooms is on fire.
You see, I thought you were about to tell me something going on in real life with how seriously you suddenly got. By the way, one of the rooms is on fire. What?
That would be an appropriate reaction. But Nancy,
Yeah.
you can just walk out. You like
Oh god.
it wouldn't be the correct choice. But Nancy is very calm.
Just
That's one of the fun parts, though,
gosh.
because as a kid, you're like, oh no, what? But you figured out pretty quick. And we are ramping up the whodunit factor.
Yeah.
Because now Lewis has a legitimate reason to be a suspect.
Yes. Yes.
Because it turns out that he wants Rose to sell the house to a friend of his. But it's probably Charlie's fault for not putting a grate in front of the fireplace.
Yeah, he's definitely like the least likely, I'd say, throughout the. Well,
Yeah, Abby is on a crusade against Charlie. She is so convinced that it's him.
Yeah.
And so I love that his very mature response is, no, it's Abby. I love it.
yeah, and I will say, I guess he is a very strong suspect until you find out about like him living in the mansion and all of
Right.
that stuff. Once you learn that stuff, he kind of stops being so much of a suspect.
Right, because before then he's more of a suspect because it's like, well, we don't really know this guy.
Yeah.
Seems kind of shady that he just sort of turned up right when they needed help.
Yeah.
But once you figure it out, no. I mean, they try to play it up like Rose is trying to cash in on fire insurance, because why else would someone in California buy fire insurance if not to set their house on fire? It's definitely not like it's an annual problem down there or anything.
Yeah, true. Is San Francisco in that area that experiences a lot of wildfires?
It's in California.
Yeah, but California is a large state.
Just isn't the whole country on fire now? It's just so exhausting.
I mean,
Hopefully there's more rain this year. Not too much rain. Like we're experiencing too much rain.
the
at
river
moment.
is like flooded. The river I like
Flooded.
flooded.
Yeah, lots of places are flooded. I think all of North Dakota is now resting below sea level. Anyway, that brings us on to Chapter 5, Gold at the End of the Light Beam.
Yep. After shoving a gem into the eye of an eagle, Nancy finally discovers that the treasure was hidden in the house.
Yeah.
Finally discovers the treasure that was hidden in the house. Why can't I read those? Anyway, The light shining through a stained glass window perfectly into the eagle's eyes, illuminating where the gold is hidden, is incredibly dumb, at least in how it's presented.
It is, but you can't deny that it's very cinematic.
Okay, they do
And as a kid,
do it fairly...
It's fun.
Yes.
You see the light beam and you're like, whoa! Like,
yeah.
it is the least realistic thing, I think, that happens in the entirety of the game.
True.
But it's cinematic. And I say that in games that aren't taking themselves as seriously, you can kind of get away with a little bit more nonsense. Because if this was wrapped around a murder, no, that'd be ridiculous. Please don't do that. But it's like there are minor accidents happening. No one has really been hurt that I can remember. It's just kind of fun nonsense.
I mean, I guess it's just I'm not a huge fan of that. Anyway, despite the improbability of that, we now know where the gold is, so Nancy pries off that part of the floor and is confronted with the find of a lifetime. Gold.jpg. Mesmerized by this, she doesn't hear someone sneaking behind her who knocks her out, but not before giving the world's most phoned-in laugh. Evil laugh.
Ha 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 ha. Too bad no one will ever find out about it.
Coming to, Nancy sees Louis Chandler in front of her, his back turned, loading a duffel bag with the gold.
So, let's play along, folks at home. When you're behind someone and need to make sure that they don't get away, should you A. Hit them over the back of the head with all of your force? B. Tackle them to the ground and fight them for Scrooge McDuck's kiddie pool?
It's barely Scrooge McDuck's puddle. Honestly.
Or C. Go upstairs and drop a chandelier on them? If you chose C, congratulations, you've committed murder.
In real life, probably.
But it's very cinematic.
Yeah, no. On top of that, you've needlessly ruined a presumably antique chandelier and
So
a
big.
beautiful wooden floor with intricate designs on it. In real life, even if it didn't kill him, Rose would at best not be on speaking terms with you anymore.
Right, especially because, like, I understand that letting the bad guy get what he wants and get away isn't good, but he's not taking anything that Rose knows exists. And also, we know his name, we know his face. We can report him to the police.
I mean, yeah, well, here's the thing. You have enough time to, like, get up the stairs and everything. Is that really the best idea you could come up with? Not, like, go call the police, like, go into the kitchen and call the police or something like that. There's a lot of stuff that she could have done that sure wouldn't have been as cinematic, but it also wouldn't have been as dumb. And
it's
also,
fun, though.
I mean, yeah, it is. I won't deny that. And also, I just gotta say, I love how the culprit's last name is Chandler.
Oh my gosh.
And you defeat him by dropping a chandelier on him.
Oh my gosh, I did not...
I refuse to believe that's a coincidence. There's no way that is a coincidence.
This is the problem with reviewing games that I primarily played when I was little, because I did not catch that. And I don't think it would have occurred to me. I was just like, yeah, that's the last name.
I don't think it occurred to me until I saw his name spelled out.
Yeah.
Once I saw his name spelled out, if you're dyslexic, you could easily read that as chandelier.
Yeah, but I will admit that it is a good puzzle because you already learn as you're exploring that one side of the staircase creaks.
No, that part of it is brilliant.
Yes.
That part of it is, I love that. Just throughout the game, you walk up the one side, and of course, if you walk up that side, he's going to hear that.
Right.
So that part is brilliant. I will say, however, that this puzzle, at least as far as I know, requires some clairvoyance, because it requires you to loosen the chandelier
I don't
beforehand.
think you need to loosen it beforehand. I think that that's
Really?
just something that we've always done, so that we have fewer steps involved in the climax. Because I don't recall ever having to second chance my way to before he knocks us out.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think. I think that we just know that the puzzle is coming, and so we set it up.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then that's fine. But either way,
fight us on this.
puzzle-wise, I don't really have much of a gripe with this climax. It's a very good climax puzzle. Very simple. Use something that, you've been wondering, well, why is that a thing for the entire game? And just,
It pulls it
it's
all
very
together.
simple.
It's
a
very
climax
nice.
puzzle should be very simple.
They don't even get to keep the money they found at the end.
No,
We did all
that-
this work to keep him from taking it, and then we have to turn it in.
Yeah, no, that feels, and this is where people start not liking me, admittedly, when I start saying stuff like this. That seems dumb to me. But admittedly, I'm not sure about the technical legality of all of this.
Yeah, I think that legally that was what had to happen. But we do
that
the
doesn't make
Scooby-Doo
sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me.
Don't
because
argue with me about laws. We're not here to debunk property laws. We're here to discuss a video game.
I feel like if the gold was stolen, well over 100 years prior, someone unwittingly came into possession of it. I feel like they should be able to keep it, because
I'm literally not going to argue property laws with you in a Nancy Drew mystery.
Fine. But you've got to admit though, they said that they would receive a reward for turning it in, but the old torn up bounty that they showed for it said the reward was $1,000, which I doubt would even cover the repairs brought on by Nancy's aggressive apprehension of Lewis.
So maybe the real treasure were the concussions we made along the way. We are now into the miscellaneous / last part of the video. We're gonna do a kind of a lightning round type thing. The alarm clock is accurate in its beeping, and I hate it.
Yes. No, I hate that beep.
I grew up with that kind of alarm clock. Super
so
accurate.
much.
Hate it very much.
It's visceral. This is the first and I think one of the few games in the series to have a tutorial. And it's also the first to implement a checklist and journal system, though the way it does it isn't terribly great.
Yeah, no, the journalists.
But at least it's something.
Yeah, they're making their way. They're making their way.
Yeah. And also, as usual, and I am going to complain about this every time this happens until the end of time, the rotary phone is not actually a rotary phone. My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined.
But it's pretty to look at, and it's less confusing for kids. I like the vibe of the house. I've already kind of talked about that. There are newspapers all over that you can read if you want. You don't really have to, but you can get a little bit more immersed in the mostly fake history
Yeah, and similar to how I like the attic area, I do also love finding like abandoned, really old, tattered news clippings and stuff like that. It's similarly very cool. You get like you feel like you're like an archaeologist or something. Just it's a very what's archaeologist, but specifically for people
Anthropologist.
stuff. Anthropologist. Like it's a very cool feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, you've got to love that rated E non-alcoholic drinks book in the basement bar.
Yeah. I like when they go the extra mile. They didn't need to put that in, but I appreciate it. It's also the music better. Looping is necessary, I guess. But I really enjoyed the music in this game more than the previous games. It doesn't bother me as much when I have to spend a long time in one place.
Yeah, the music never bothered me. It fits the mood. It fits the vibe perfectly. And
really
I don't really get tired of listening to it while I'm playing. So
yeah, there's a little bit too much reading in this game, but it isn't as bad as some other games, and the reading is mostly skippable. You don't really need to read most of what they put in there.
yeah, and I don't remember being bothered by the reading. It's not like the first game where like you have
An entire library.
yeah, it's for the most part the stuff that you can read is on some level interesting.
I'm not that interested in it, but it's just because that time period just isn't quite my vibe. The mad gold rush, and it's like I took history. I'm not. I'm more interested in it, like largely in how it relates to the mystery at large. Like I think they did a good job having the miscellaneous reading. It was
Actually
incorporated.
pertain to the mystery.
Yeah, this isn't like certain games that we will get to later, where there's just reading for the sake of reading.
Yeah.
So I mean, overall, I think that it was a pretty fun game. I think it holds up.
Yeah, no, I think, third game in the series, I think this is the first game that I can say is, without qualifications, a good game.
Yes. Like, it's a good game to play now. If I were to, whenever anyone asks recommendations for Nancy Drew games, it's like, don't start at the beginning, but if you do want to start near the beginning, Message in a Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, Message in a Haunted Mansion is a good starting point. It's a solid game. Not perfect, of course not.
No, but it's very simple too. It's very simple, but not stupid simple. It's straightforward. You understand what you're supposed to do for the majority of the game. It's very hard, honestly, to get stuck. There's usually, if you're stuck, talk to more people.
Yeah, like it's helped by the fact that you're in a fairly small area. I'd say, what I recall, I think the only place that it's really easy to get stuck is triggering the seance.
Yes.
If I recall correctly, the trigger for the seance is a little annoyingly time specific.
You have to talk to Abby, and if you forget about it and just never talk to her again, it can take a while. But aside from that, like, even including that, it isn't as easy to get stuck because you didn't pixel search every single stone on the wall.
Yeah. No, I think the pixel searching in this game wasn't too bad.
No, it was down to a minimum, I'd say. That you're always going to have some pixel searching in this kind of game. But it was a lot more logical where you were looking.
Yeah. So, with all that said, I think it's probably fairly obvious, admittedly.
It's ranked at the bottom.
But where would you rank it?
In relation to the previous games, this one is easily the best. It is at the top.
Mm-hmm. And I concur. And I do promise that eventually our lists will differ. It's just we happen
these
to
are
agree.
so much more objective. Like it's
we happen to agree with a lot of the early games.
and a lot of the early games where they like end up being less fun and I wouldn't recommend them as much is just because of like poor design, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Where it is easy to get stuck, where it is a lot of pixel searching, it is a lot of needless reading that doesn't pertain to anything. And so that's why our lists are kind of the same right now. But once Her Interactive kind of figures their stuff out, only to tragically lose it in the end, our lists start to differ because then it's not just is this game playable? It's, is this game fun?
Yeah. Yeah. And this game is both. This
Right.
game is both playable and fun.
Yes.
Gets the thumbs up from me.
2 thumbs up.
I only have 2. I can't one up you. 2 thumbs and a toe. Anyway.
Flexible.
Not really.
Anyway, thanks for visiting with us again.
I got no.
It might be another year.
It hasn't. It could not have possibly been a year.
It was June.
Oh no, it was almost a year. It might be a year by the time I'm done editing this.
So,
I don't know. We're
in.
trying.
Yeah,
Yeah, check in. Make sure we're okay.
I'm not okay. This is the most okay I've been all year. I'm so tired, I just want to sleep.
Oh. Oh,
Fun
this
times.
is a downer ending we're doing.
No, we're laughing. It's
Yeah.
my laptop is about to die.
Anyway, I don't know how to end videos.
This video won't end.
This is the video that does not end. It just goes on and on, my friend. Some people started filming it not knowing what it was, and they'll just keep on filming it forever just because this is the video that doesn't end. It just goes on and on, my friend. Some people started filming it not knowing what it was, and they'll just keep on filming it forever just because this is a video that does not end.